Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark.
The basketball world's golden girl has gone quiet, but the noise surrounding her has only grown louder. This is no longer just about a roster snub. It has become a debate over what many see as the mishandling of one of the biggest marketing opportunities in sports. According to one of the loudest voices in sports media, Stephen A. Smith, the issue goes far beyond basketball. For months, fans were told it was about seniority, chemistry, and paying dues, but critics argue there is a deeper story involving resentment, gatekeeping, and jealousy. Smith suggested that Caitlin Clark understands exactly why she has been targeted and believes it has more to do with her impact than her ability. Rumors have even claimed she has stopped seeking approval from people who never truly embraced her. Why would one of America's most popular athletes step away from such a major opportunity? What did Stephen A. Smith see that others ignored? To understand the controversy, it helps to go back to the roster announcement that shocked the basketball world. What should have been a routine selection quickly became a cultural flashpoint when Clark was reportedly left off the roster despite her enormous popularity and influence. The official explanation focused on experience and established team chemistry, but many fans were unconvinced. Critics argued that generational stars are not left behind simply because they are young, pointing to legends who would never have been excluded under similar circumstances. Reports later suggested the decision may have been influenced by concerns over how veteran players would react to Clark's presence and the attention she brings. If true, the choice was about more than basketball. It was about managing personalities, protecting egos, and controlling the spotlight rather than simply selecting the players who could make the biggest impact. They put the veterans' comfort ahead of the game's growth. Stephen A. Smith drew the line right there, but his comments went beyond criticizing the committee. He suggested the decision amounted to sabotage. Known for his outspoken opinions, Smith's reaction felt unusually personal. On national television, he essentially called the decision foolish, then broke down why he believed it represented a complete failure of leadership. His argument was simple. Basketball is a global spectacle, and every 4 years casual fans tune in to watch sports they normally ignore. Women's basketball has spent years trying to build that audience, and now one player is attracting millions of new viewers. According to Smith, leaving Caitlin Clark at home was a marketing disaster. He argued the goal should have been to grow the game and expand the brand, not protect an established hierarchy. In his view, the decision showed that the gatekeepers cared more about preserving their own order than helping the league reach its full potential. Smith also suggested Clark would not forget the disrespect, implying that her camp was keeping track of everyone who stayed silent. That leads to the uncomfortable subject the WNBA would rather avoid: jealousy. Long before Clark played a professional game, warning shots were already being fired. Diana Taurasi famously said, "Reality is coming for Clark," while Cheryl Swoops questioned Clark's college accomplishments. Many wondered why established legends seemed so eager to minimize a 22-year-old before she had even stepped onto a WNBA court. Smith hinted that the old guard struggled with the amount of attention Clark was receiving. Those veterans played before sold-out arenas, private charter flights, and multi-million-dollar endorsement deals became part of the conversation. Now Clark had all of that before finishing her first season. In most sports, veterans welcome the superstar who grows the game because everyone benefits. Tiger Woods increased prize money across golf, and fellow players ultimately profited. But Smith argued the reaction in the WNBA has often been the opposite, with some appearing determined to punish Clark simply for being popular. He even suggested Clark may secretly be relieved she was left off the roster because of the tension surrounding the situation. And according to critics, the hostility did not end with public comments. It eventually carried onto the basketball court. At this point, the narrative shifts from drama to genuine concern. Anyone who has followed the games has seen that Caitlin Clark is often on the receiving end of a different kind of contact. This is not simply tough defense. It is about plays many believe go beyond basketball. Critics frequently point to the now famous incident involving Alyssa Thomas, where Clark was hit before the play had fully developed, followed by another physical confrontation that many viewed as a cheap shot. The reaction became just as controversial as the play itself. Instead of immediate punishment, some players and media personalities dismissed it as welcome to the league, arguing Clark simply needed to get tougher. Stephen A. Smith called that a glaring double standard, saying the league would react far differently if stars like LeBron James or Stephen Curry were repeatedly targeted. According to that view, the environment raises an obvious question. Why would Clark want to spend a month alongside players she believes have either targeted her or stayed silent? Reports later fueled speculation that Clark could have accepted an alternate roster spot, but chose not to. Rumors claim she politely declined the idea of serving as a backup, deciding instead to step away quietly rather than wait on the sidelines. Smith suggested that Clark now understands her own value, arguing that she no longer needs the opportunity to build her brand because she has already become the league's biggest draw. While some expected her to accept whatever role was offered, she instead reportedly chose to take time away, leaving many to interpret it as a statement of confidence rather than frustration. The numbers only strengthened that argument. Clark's games have consistently produced television audiences several times larger than games without her. Opposing teams have moved contests into larger NBA arenas to meet ticket demand, and she has become one of the biggest attractions in women's basketball. Smith argued that television networks invest millions because they want ratings, and by leaving Clark at home, decision-makers effectively burn money. In his view, Clark did not need to say anything at all. She simply stayed home while everyone else dealt with the consequences. The argument will ultimately be reflected in the television ratings. If the audience for the tournament falls well below what a typical Indiana Fever regular season game attracts, the response will speak for itself. Millions of viewers who normally tune in to watch Caitlin Clark will simply spend their time elsewhere. That is why many believe this was not just a basketball decision, but a poor business decision as well. In professional sports, losing money is often the mistake organizations cannot afford to make. Critics also argue that the situation exposed a deeper cultural problem within the WNBA. For years, the league has been a close-knit community where many players have known each other through overseas leagues and shared experiences. Clark, however, represents something new, a wave of casual fans and mainstream attention. Some longtime supporters have expressed frustration that new fans focus almost entirely on Clark instead of the rest of the league, often saying they have supported women's basketball for years and want other stars recognized too. Stephen A. Smith argued that this mindset is harmful because successful leagues welcome new fans instead of questioning why they arrived. By leaving Clark off the roster, he believes decision-makers reinforced an us versus them culture rather than embracing unprecedented growth. Throughout it all, Clark has remained respectful, praising opponents, signing autographs, and avoiding public controversy. Ironically, the more professional she appears, the more critics say the hostility toward her stands out. Smith also pointed to the business side of the equation. Clark is one of Nike's biggest athletes, and Nike has invested heavily in women's basketball. Many expected that relationship to strengthen her position, especially with a signature shoe reportedly on the horizon. Instead, rumors suggested that even major corporate influence could not overcome the internal politics surrounding the roster decision. Whether that was because sponsors stayed neutral or because the committee wanted to prove it could not be influenced, many viewed it as another example of a missed opportunity. What could have been the perfect global stage for Clark's growing brand disappeared, adding yet another layer to what critics describe as one of the most controversial decisions in recent women's basketball history. The biggest athlete in the country, Caitlin Clark, and the world's largest sports marketing powerhouse, Nike, seemed destined to create the perfect partnership, making the entire situation feel like an enormous missed opportunity. While the discussion must be approached carefully, it is impossible to ignore the debates taking place online. Many have argued that race has become part of the conversation, adding even more tension. Clark is white, while the majority of WNBA players are black, and some believe white athletes historically receive more media attention than equally talented black players. Although that is a broader discussion with historical context, many feel it has been weaponized in Clark's case. Angel Reese, whose rivalry with Clark dates back to college, has often been portrayed as a symbol of the anti-Clark narrative. After Alyssa Thomas fouled Clark, social media quickly became divided, with arguments spreading along racial lines. Stephen A. Smith has addressed the topic carefully, acknowledging the history while insisting Clark's popularity is driven primarily by her style of play. Like Stephen Curry, she regularly shoots from deep range, creating an exciting brand of basketball that attracts casual fans. Even so, the racial tension surrounding the situation has made the atmosphere increasingly toxic. If Clark feels she is being singled out because of those dynamics, she is placed in an impossible position. If she speaks up, she is criticized. If she stays silent, she continues to absorb the pressure. Stepping away for a month may simply be what she needs for her mental well-being. Critics have also questioned Cheryl Reeve, who serves as head coach of the Minnesota Lynx while also leading the Indiana Fever in this discussion. Before the season, Reeve publicly questioned the heavy television focus on Clark and the Fever, leading some to wonder how Clark could feel fully supported by a coach who had openly criticized the attention surrounding her. Stephen A. Smith argued this represented a conflict of interest, claiming the person helping shape roster decisions had already expressed skepticism toward the Clark phenomenon. When Reeve was later asked about Clark's omission, many felt her response came across as cold and dismissive rather than reassuring. Critics argue that great coaches unite veterans and young stars instead of choosing one side, and they believe leaving Clark out was the easiest way to satisfy established players rather than embrace the future of women's basketball. The discussion also returned to the idea of Clark serving as an alternate. In professional sports, alternates travel, practice, and wait for someone else to get hurt before they can compete. Many believe asking the face of the sport to accept that role was disrespectful. Rumors that Clark quietly removed herself from alternate consideration have been viewed as a sign that she understands her own value. Rather than accepting what some considered a consolation prize, she reportedly chose to step away, refusing to celebrate with a team that had not fully embraced her. Stephen A. Smith has openly praised that mindset, arguing it reflects confidence, self-respect, and an understanding of her growing influence on the sport.